And we are live.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. One second, just pull up the great document. Welcome everyone to today's ITGS committee. I'm joined here by both of my colleagues on the committee today, Council Members Blumenfield and Council Member Price. Welcome. And I'm very excited because this is my first committee meeting that I'm chairing. And so I'm very excited to be here, to have you both here, and I ask that everyone bear with me because not only is this my first committee meeting that I'm chairing, but it's also happening through a fairly strange digital process. So normally I'm sure Michael would be next to me giving me advice on how to make it run more smoothly, but right now everything has to be done digitally. So thank you all for your patience, and thank you all for joining me this morning. I think we can start with public comment, I believe.
Well, Councilmember, would you like me to call the roll at the very beginning?
Oh, great, yes.
Councilmember Rahman?
Here.
Councilmember Blumenfield?
Blumenfield present.
And Councilmember Price?
Price present.
Councilmember, we have 3 members and a quorum.
Great, fantastic. Okay, so now we can move into public comment, and I believe my colleague Megan will be managing our public comment process today. I'm going to take public comment on all the items on the agenda. Speakers today will have 1 minute if they're speaking on one item and 2 minutes total if they're speaking on multiple items. Speakers can also have 1 minute for general public comment if requested. And if there are additional instructions for how the public can participate in the meeting, Mr. Espinoza, if you can provide those to the public, that would be great.
Great. Members of the public who would like to offer public comment during on the items listed on the agenda should call 1-669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 161-892-0108 and then press pound. Press pound again when prompted for a participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press *9 to request to speak.
Thank you, Council Member. We currently have no speakers for public comment.
And Council Member, I believe you're muted.
Sorry about that. Mr. Espinoza, do you recommend we wait a moment or do we move on at this point?
At this point, I believe we can close public comment.
Okay, great. Seeing as we have no public comments on today's agenda, let's move to the consideration of items. We have a total of 6 items for consideration on today's agenda. I wanted to recommend this morning that we take items 1, 2, and 6 on consent, unless there are any objections from the other committee members.
Yeah. Madam Chair?
Yes.
Item 1 is great, but I do want to ask a question, so I would ask that we call that special for a question.
Okay, fantastic. Great. So just items 2 and 6 on consent. Yes? Okay, great.
And would you like me to take the roll for those 2 items?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, so this is for items number 2 and 6. Councilmember Rahman?
Yes.
Councilmember Blumenfield?
Blumenfield, aye.
And Councilmember Price?
Price, aye.
Items 2 and 6 are approved.
Great. So now we're going to take a look at item 1 on the agenda, which is the motion relative to the underutilization of city-owned properties and the feasibility of using them for temporary or permanent homeless housing. This has also been referred to the Homelessness and Poverty Committee. I guess I'm opening this item up for discussion. Yes, Councilmember Blumenfield. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. So I just wanted to ask the staff, because obviously this is so important that we use every bit of land that we can for homeless interventions. But we've done this like 3 times where we've asked for a report back, and I wanted to know what's going to be different this time. And sometimes we get things like last time when we did this earlier in the year. The only thing was identified was parking lots on my district and an R1 property on a dirt road, which was kind of useless. But we missed other things that were maybe not as used. We ended up using like one of those parking lots and the lot behind my office. But is there something different about this study, or is it just recycling the old study, or what's going to be different?
And so, okay, so Mr. Espinoza, I have a question for you. If you're asking this question generally to the entire group, and there's no member of who is able to step forward and answer this question at this time?
Do we have somebody from GSD who's doing who's actually going to be doing the study?
Good morning, Council members. Josh Drake from the CLA's office. The motion actually directs the CLA to report on this. I'll have to get back to you on if there'll be any differences or how this will work, because the motion hasn't been approved yet. No one's actually started the heavy lift on this, and I'll work with GST on that.
Okay, because I think there are areas where you could focus and not just. I hate for us to do this and then just get back the same document that we've always got. So it would be nice to get some more boundaries on what this is, and maybe there are areas that we haven't looked at. But I guess also having the CLA as the lead is different, because last time I guess it was GSD. Is that right? So maybe that's going to produce.
I believe so, though. The CLA will still have to lean on GST a lot for this information.
Okay.
Okay. I believe there was one additional piece of information requested in this, which I found interesting. And I did second this motion because I was interested in this. One of the questions that the motion asks is asking for an evaluation of city-owned properties through the lens of their feasibility for homeless housing, but without regard to what the future plans for those properties are. And so I think the idea behind this motion was that you would be able to get a potential list of properties that are possible to use for homeless housing, and then we would be able to compare them against future planned uses for those lands that are currently being used. I imagine, based on the wording of this motion, that pieces of property that had other future uses planned on them were excluded from previous studies. That was my understanding when I read this motion initially.
So I guess when it comes back, it'll have, if there is a future use, it'll have the future use right next to it, so we can know what that is.
That's not specified in the motion, and it might be worthwhile to add that as a specification, because otherwise there will be then another request for information to ask what the to allow the council to make that comparison. So
I would certainly support that amendment.
okay. So should we put that amendment into this motion then?
Sure, I'll do it for him. I move that we include an amendment in this motion to have future properties listed along future uses of underutilized properties listed alongside of that.
I'll second that.
All right.
As do I. Great. So, okay.
So now we would move this item as amended. Would you like me to call roll for this item?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. So Councilmember Rahman,
Yes.
Councilmember Blumenfield,
Blumenfield, aye.
and Councilmember Price.
Aye.
This item is approved as amended.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. So at this time, I believe the next item up for consideration is Item number 3 is Ms. Hoppus from the mayor's office here. I see her here. If you're available to discuss the item, we'd love to hear from you.
And Councilmember, prior to that, would you like me to read this item into the record?
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Sure. Councilman, this is a communication from the mayor relative to the development of a regional solicitation platform to replace the city's current solicitation system. And on November 18th, 2020, the ad hoc on Comprehensive Job Creation Plan Committee considered this matter.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Welcome. Happy to be here. Again, my name is Shannon Hoppus. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer with the Mayor's Office of Budget and Innovation. I am joined today by my partners in ITA, General Manager Ted Ross and his Executive Officer Joyce Edson, as well as my teammates who will jump in the event I may not cover everything. But again, we are here to provide you somewhat of a status update of the work we've been doing around our new solicitation platform, and we'll jump right in.
Great, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. So for you, I think it would be good to just provide a little background of why we're here, why we're endeavoring to explore this or fix this problem. The landscape of our situation is that procurement is our second largest spend after payroll. So it's a significant part of our budget. We spend $4.7 billion each year in procurement, and we create roughly 3,600 RFIs, RFQs, RFPs each year. And that is done throughout the city. Some of it is centralized, some of it is not. And that's really some of the problem that we're experiencing is the city really hasn't optimized our procurement processes. So we lose a lot of leveraging capability. We experience a lot of redundancies because of that. We don't have a modern database that can provide metrics for policymakers. So oftentimes when council or elected officials or general managers want information around procurement, the information is very hard to attain because it comes from various sources. It is dispersed across 8 different departments. And while you've had a lot of efforts made by departments who may touch the procurement process, these operations and these systems are often siloed. Again, losing the ability to really centralize the data that informs our policy, informs our initiatives, and ensures that we are being held accountable and that our policies are effective. So we've really seen this pivot, especially over the last year, in terms of the need. This has really been looked to as not just a solicitation platform or a replacement of what we currently have. It's really being seen as a regional economic development and recovery tool, particularly post-COVID. We know that procurement plays a large role in economic recovery. We reviewed various studies, but one that was most compelling is the Obama study. For every $1 of public works projects, there was a $3 return in economic activity. We know that this system, through its efficiencies, will streamline and improve access for our small, local, minority-owned, and women-owned businesses. And we know that studies show that MeBe or minority and women-owned businesses represent 38 to 55% of our regional business. However, our limited metrics show that we all probably only award 2 to 10% to those businesses. We know that we can realize a lot of impact if we start to centralize this data. We know this because we've done it in the past. If you're not familiar with our operations, our commodities are centralized under our General Services Department. And that happened under a project called Prima 2000. A lot of the activities, the payments, the purchases itself, the warehousing was all centralized. And when they did that on a 600, I think at that time it was a $400 million spend. That centralization saved the city $35 million in initial savings, and then $2 to $3 million thereafter. So again, we see the power of centralization, and we've done it already. So we know that our current services and construction contracts average about $3 billion. So we know that if we were to centralize more of this data, we would be able to experience even more savings. If you're not familiar, the service contracts, which is again much larger than our commodity spend, it is dispersed among our 40-some departments. So 40-some departments are expected to procure on their own services with limited resources and knowing whether other departments have procured the same things. If you're a new hire, you don't necessarily have resources or a centralized group of resources to call and get direction on how to do a procurement, how to write an RFP, again, whether or not there's already an existing contract, so you don't even have to go through the effort. We don't have those things. And I set that tone just because the expectation, and I think often the assumptions of a city of our size, is that we already have these things in place, and they're not. So again, the reason we're here, and also it's been said time and time again just how long it takes us to procure. On average, it takes about 300 days from RFP to execution. Again, no central database to provide procurement reporting on metrics, on success of our initiatives, on our spend as a whole. It's a big exercise. If you want to gather that information, you have to gather it from multiple systems to get the full landscape of the procurement of our procurement. Again, reports are created through manual information. Right now, your offices may have seen ethics ask for your quarterly reports around procurement. That's a big lift for departments, especially those that procure a lot. It's a manual process. They keep it on spreadsheets. They keep it in hard copy. They keep it differently, and then have to report into the ethics commission. So reports such as this, these laborious types of reports, are going to be built into this system, so it will tie to these other systems and or replace them, actually. So just to give you a sense of the current infrastructure, we have 8 independent developed systems that manage some part of procurement. So you may have heard of LA Bavin. That's our current solicitation platform. There's FMS, which is the financial portion. And then proprietary departments have their own systems entirely. So through this solution, through this platform, we're actually going to start to centralize the systems and have a single point of entry for our procurement operations. The next line is it's approximately 54 paper documents that are required in our contracting process. That spans the mayor's office, the CAO's office, personnel, GSD, all the departments that have to touch these documents. So what we're going to be doing in this platform is digitizing those documents with autofill features, and it will actually connect to our Angelino account, which all of you are probably familiar with at this point. Our current platform is very vulnerable. It's built on Cold Fusion, which was released in 1995. It's aging and limited, and it poses security risks and prevents us from really doing some meaningful upgrades. It has a lot of limits to what we have wanted a platform to do for us. So Salesforce, our new platform, is going to be able to be updated in a timely manner. it's going to reduce the time that it takes to add functionality and various features at no additional cost, because we are going to already own the licenses. And to just give an idea, what we love about this is Salesforce is actually training our programmers to work on this platform. So when we need those updates, we are going to be able to rely on our own programmers and not have to call an outside vendor to do those upgrades at a pretty hefty cost. Now, this next slide, don't expect anyone to understand it or even want to understand it, but if you want to, we can go into detail. The circle there, the blue circle, is really capturing the current functionality of our current solicitation platform. You can see it's limited. It does those few pink boxes. The background is what is being built out in this new platform. The workflows that touch procurement, touch all the various departments, that touch the reportings, those are all the things that are being built out in this new solicitation platform. And really, it's not fair to keep calling it a solicitation platform. It is much more than that, but I think that's where it started. And we've seen the ability and capabilities of this platform, of Salesforce, and know that we are able to build it in many different ways. So the expanded development is going to result in a fully modernized and digitized procurement process. It's going to be flexible. It's going to be something that's nimble. So when we change, our systems are going to be able to change with us. When we get a new initiatives, new workflows, we're going to be nimble enough to change our systems accordingly. We're going to build out some of our current policies and make them a digital process. Our business inclusion program is going to be more of an exchange between our prime contractors and our subcontractors versus just the primes reaching out to our subs. Our subs are actually going to be able to follow our primes, see what they're working on, connect with them in advance, and develop relationships long before we actually have a solicitation. So we're, again, creating that marketplace, that place for businesses to connect. We're going to have an enhanced vendor profile and single login, again, through the Angelino account. Right now, vendors, if they want to work with multiple departments, they have to put in paperwork for each procurement they do. So this is creating a centralized location for that vendor profile and all their related documentation. It's going to be a clearinghouse. It's going to have the capability of being a clearinghouse for regional use. So when this was started, there was a strong desire from the business community and our Los Angeles Business Council to build something that would be similar to the London Games, which was Compete for London. And what that allowed for is regional participation. So it wouldn't just house the city's solicitations, it would have the capability to bring in other businesses. And that's really what we've done. We've built this with them and for them. We developed 2 task force internally and externally with both of those groups in mind. The departments were very eager to participate in this and update this. This has been a pain point or a desire for quite some time. So there was extreme participation. I mean, I use the term over and over. It was a true labor of love because everyone rallied. It was just one of those things that was just, everybody was just waiting to do. And that included our business partners. And we had the large businesses involved as well as the small. And we said, if we build it, will you use it? And again, they've expressed interest in that, and that's what we hope to accomplish with it. It'll centralize all our contracting and our payment information. It'll at some point have the ability to pull information from our bigger systems. It'll have real-time and holistic contracting and purchasing data. It'll allow us to increase our compliance without the administrative burden on our departments. Our departments are losing staff. Our departments are having new staff in these contracting spaces. So this is really going to automate a lot of that function and a lot of that knowledge that is walking out the door, quite honestly, or being transferred or what have you. So it's really going to be a much more intuitive system in terms of our contracting. And then again, it's really to provide a regional resource for our small, local, minority, and women-owned businesses. So this is the phasing of what we're going to be doing. Our phase one actually starts at the end of, now the beginning of February, and will go live February, I believe, 17th. So all the current BAVN functionality will be moved onto this new platform. While it's not going to look a lot different to our business community, it will provide a lot of additional functionality to our departments. So that's going to include the reporting capabilities. And of course, over time, we're going to have to build up that ability because we're going to be populating the database over time. But it's going to have a ton of reporting capability that we just don't have with our current system. And then the next couple of phases will be done probably in about 6-month increments. It really is depending on our staffing levels and our bandwidth and our partnership with ITA. So that's the hope, is to build it out to be that regional tool in phase 2, centralizing our city contracts so departments can understand what we're all contracting for. We're working closely with our CAO to understand their process at the beginning, at the budget time, so we can start to populate the system at that time and do better forecasting for our vendors. So our vendors know how to scale their companies in anticipation of coming contracts. And this allows departments to understand what other departments are going to be purchasing throughout the year so they can start to partner on these RFPs and these various procurements. And then phase 3 is, again, just more interface, probably more deeper dive into the invoicing and the payment structure. We want to understand and learn more about our vendors and how they're paying our subcontractors. Right now, there's no mechanism in place to understand if our subcontractors are getting paid by our primes. So we are trying to develop a system that gives us that visibility into the payment process. And that pretty much covers the highlights of what we're working on, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. That was great. I wanted to see whether any of my fellow council members had questions on this presentation at this time. Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Price.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Shannon, thank you for the presentation. Really good to see you. Happy New Year. I really appreciate someone with your commitment to this topic and task. I know you've been at it for a while, so thanks for you and your team. Looks like you made some extraordinary progress over the past several months. But as you said, there's still some significant obstacles that we've got to get over. I certainly hope that the small business community is going to be the primary beneficiaries of this redo, this reorganization, this reconfiguration. Everything from getting payments more expeditiously to reducing paperwork, both things you talked about. So I just hope we can focus on that. And just curious, are we touching on the certifications at all in this process? Every level of government, almost every agency, as you know, has some kind of certification process. How has that been impacted with this?
Well, as you know, certifications are handled by our Bureau of Contract Administration, and there has been the desire to build out the certification process in this platform as well. So there's a lot of interest because of, again, the flexibility of this system to add various modules to it. In fact, we were before IPC, and they're asking us to build already an additional module that really does cater to our targeted outreach for our small business community. And that'll be exciting to talk about when I believe that comes before you, or we'll make sure it does, just so we can talk about it when the time is right. But yes, there is that strong desire to, or there is the intent to bring the certification process into that. And if anyone wants to add to that, jump in, team, Ed, Joyce. But yes, that's the goal, is really, and again, back to the point, it's really centralizing all the procurement functions, the business side of the procurement, and bringing it into one centralized location, both for the city, our city departments, and for our business community. So it's very transparent. It's understood. It's able to be tracked, and then the certifications again are done. I don't believe there's been any backlogs in BCA, so I think we're ready just to start building it when the time is right, when the phase is right.
Right, exactly. It just needs to be a part of this process, I think.
And it is. They are very much at this table.
You talked about expanding local minority participation from to 38% from the 2% that it currently exists. What are you doing in terms of recruiting, monitoring, informing, recruiting, identifying organizations, businesses to be a part of this process?
Well, we have a lot of business partners. We're 4 people on my team, to give you perspective. Procurement teams are in the range of 300 employees. That's what you have at DWP. It's what you have at GSD. We are 4 people overseeing 42 departments, policy, process, and technology for procurement, to give perspective. So we are really leaning on the chambers, on the Los Angeles Business Council, on our sports and entertainment industries. We're going to be working with our business improvement districts to get the word out. We're going to be working with the neighborhood councils. We want to, again, I think what is going to also help get out the word is the IPC ask that we were awarded and again, that is specifically targeted to our small business communities and the outreach around that. So there is an intent to bring on at some point a marketing team, and that's happening with in tandem with or in partnership with LABC. But everything is so tight. I mean, this has continued to run the risk of funding or of not being funded. But
it's a challenge all across the board.
Right.
So you want to also include your ethnic chambers. I think that could be a unique resource for you. And lastly, Madam Chair, just one last question. You talked about the software being really tailored to our city. Is this software being used in other municipalities, or are we guinea pigs, or how is this coming about?
Joyce can probably speak to how long Salesforce has been around, but we met with the state of Texas, who has been using Salesforce for, I think they said 13 years even, and how they built it out was amazing. It was extraordinary to see how that state really used this platform or this application. It's really, if you can dream it, then you can build it, and that's why the direction and the choice of choosing Salesforce, because we wanted to build it out in a way we needed it as a city. We wanted it to work with our proprietaries to the extent possible. So it's been used extensively for quite some time. I know the chamber is using Salesforce. Joyce, you might have some other examples, but it's not new. The city doesn't usually like to do anything that's new. Too new.
Keep up to the work. We look forward to working with you on this.
Go ahead, Ted. Sorry.
Shannon, if I may add a quick item. So Ted Ross, General Manager with ITA. Certainly Salesforce, a very well-established CRM product, been around since 1999. When it comes to the usage in this type of area for procurement portals, Certainly some other cities and some other states have been using it in counties. We're certainly doing it, though, I think in a bigger scheme. We're doing it in the sense of trying to provide a real regional procurement approach. And I have to give a lot of credit to the mayor's chief procurement officer, especially in light of our preparation for the Olympics. Now is really the time to really allow small businesses and others and local businesses to really compete for just a wide variety of contracts that will be made available. If I could summarize it, I think the chief procurement officer really hit the nail on the head. We tried to provide a system that can, number one, simplify for small businesses. That's one of the biggest issues we see from local businesses is the need to simplify a process. They shouldn't have to be large and complex and have dedicated procurement staff to compete for a city contract. Secondly, when it comes to departments, is the ability to automate. Departments don't have the people. We're always at a constraint for resources. So simple automation in key areas allows them to be able to do more with less. And that's fantastic. And then the third aspect is what we call metricizing, is to provide real data and feedback to city management. As Shannon was describing, our current process is broken into multiple systems, various processes, and to get real data, you have to solicit every city department, ask them to fill out spreadsheets manually. And that's just a terrible way to approach this. By getting that type of insight and that type of data, that allows us to iterate and continue to improve. And Shannon, I don't know if you also mentioned, but you had focus groups. You actually brought in or small businesses and local businesses as we were in development to figure out exactly what we should be building, because we don't want to be that stereotypical government that builds software that no one wants to use. We need to build software that's a true solution for local businesses.
That's great. Thank you. Councilmember Blumenfield, did you have additional questions for?
No question. Just a comment, I guess, because I've been following this for a long time, and I'm very bullish on Salesforce and getting us moved into the 21st century or 20th century or wherever we're headed. But either way, to get us up to speed, and especially just to underscore something Mr. Price said, which is it is so critical for our minority and women-owned businesses. I've talked to a lot of them about what they need and have been through this, to get more of our contracts so we can really be the kind of city we want to be. And it's always the same thing. It's not just about set-asides. It's always, if you could pay me on time, my small business could survive, but I can't do business with the city because I can't float 300 days. Only the really big corporations can do that. So especially that this will speed that time frame up. I think this will be doing more for Weeby and for equity than lots of other things that we can continue to do and should do, but that this is a really big step that people don't think of as a step toward equity, but I really think that it is. So I'm excited about it for lots of reasons, that being one of them, and just the efficiency and getting our city up to speed is another one. So I'm excited. I've asked many questions on this before, so I won't take up any more time on this. So thank you.
And council member, I'm sorry to interrupt, but council member, if I may, I know in times past you mentioned the importance around the COVID recovery. Is that we're very focused as a society on the vaccines and getting through it, but we will be recovering. And as we recover, I know you've mentioned before the importance for local small businesses to be able to have a vehicle to recover with, and this can be a powerful tool for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a couple of quick questions. The $4.3 billion figure for procurement that you mentioned from the city, does that include the proprietary departments?
Yes.
And so are the proprietary departments committed to using the system as well?
Well, the proprietaries, they are always going to have their own operational needs that are very, very different, very specific to what they're doing. So Bavin, through executive directive, is required for all departments to post on. So we're really just leveraging that. A new ED will probably go out in time as we gather a few other tools that we are going to expect departments to use. But this is really just a continuation of what they've already done. And that's posting in this centralized location. They've been part of the conversation. They know that this is expected of them. But again, what we've stressed with them is the need that whatever they do build, it does need to feed into this platform. So as they build out for their operations, We just have to go forward knowing that we have to capture the data that is related to procurement. And that's been a big shift. That's a huge shift for the city. We typically let the departments kind of operate separately, but we have the leverage from the current platform requiring their participation already, and they've been part of the development as well.
Okay. I'm not sure I fully follow the process there, but maybe that's a question. I did read through the reports before this meeting, and so that was just a question I had from reading them as well and in your presentation. But maybe that's something I can.
Yeah, it's a lot to digest, but we would be happy to provide a presentation for any of you, particularly you, Madam Chair, for your office to kind of get the full backstory and.
Yeah. And I had a quick question on kind of accountability issues. I know there's a real focus on equity and access being increased through this platform. I noticed some figures being cited in this, some other figures cited in the earlier report that came from the BIC. I think this process started with the LA 2028 question and then moved to this kind of this form. But I just wanted to make sure that we were capturing data through this process that would help us to track improvement over time in access to minority-owned and women-owned businesses. Because I saw that the figure that you have says it comes from our limited data, so I just want to make sure that we were doing that as well.
Yes, that is the big point of this, is that we scramble for data. It's lacking always. It's inconsistent. When we initially tried to identify our spend through our open data, our biggest area of spend was named other. So even our accounting practices are lacking in terms of how we identify our spend, how we name it. Everybody names things differently. So this has been a big effort. I've literally been working on this just alone, never mind everybody else's efforts that have been at this for literally their city careers. But in this capacity, I've been working on this for 7 years. and we're just now this far because it's really turning a big ship. It's getting the city to understand procurement in terms of strategy versus purely operational. And in order to position procurement strategically, you have to have metrics. You have to understand where your spend is going. You have to understand how many of the same contracts you have for different pricing. We can do better when operations have been centralized that are similar to our spend. They have say $4 billion. We talked to one outside company. When they centralized their efforts, again, with a similar spend, they saved $175 million per year.
Right.
So that's just to give you a sense. And back to my point about GSD centralizing only $400 million of spend and coming out with $35 million of savings. I mean, this is powerful. This is something that we have to do as a city. It's a fiduciary responsibility. And it's to your point, it's to finally gain metrics around areas that we've never had metrics or they've been siloed. So it is to bring them all together so we can make informed policy decisions.
Great.
And hold ourselves accountable, to your point.
Yeah. And I just wanted to make one final comment. I have a couple of other questions, but I can follow up with you directly afterwards because I don't want to hold up everyone on the committee for this, and they're just technical questions that I wanted to understand more. But I did want to just encourage you to look at the council offices as partners for reaching out to small businesses. We are hiring, especially during this period of COVID recovery in our office, we're going to be hiring a consultant who's going to help us reach out to our small businesses and help them navigate some of the processes that they're going to have to handle now in order to be able to handle, access federal funds and things like that. And so I'm sure all of the council offices are doing that. And So we'd love to work with you on that as well as you move forward.
Right, and we've only gotten this far because of the true partnership across the departments, the elected offices. I mean, it's been so critical to have that in place to get this far. And again, back to my mention about labor of love, it's just only gotten here with all that's going on because of the importance and the value that everyone sees for the small businesses. So we look forward to working with you and meeting with you soon on this.
Great.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time today. So, so I guess at this time we will note and file this report. Is that right?
Yes, we will be concurring with the previous action of the Ad Hoc Comprehensive Job Creation Plan Committee.
Okay, fantastic, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess we can move on to our consideration of the next item.
Yes, item number 4 is a report from the Information Technology Agency relative to an update in regards to the Human Resource and Payroll Project on November 4th, 2020. The Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee considered this this matter.
Madam
Great.
Chair,
Yes.
just before you start, I apologize. I have another committee scheduled at the same time right now.
Yes.
That needs me for quorum. So I think you've got quorum without me, and if it's okay, I'm going to take my leave of this committee at the moment. You've been doing a great job of chairing it, and I know you're going to be a great chair of this committee, and look forward to working with you as we move forward. But if that's all right, I'm going to leave at this moment and join the other committee.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming today. I know I've got big shoes to fill here since this was your roles, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks. Take care.
Yep. Okay, great. And Ted, did you want to
Absolutely.
discuss this item?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not as exciting as a procurement portal, but payroll is still an important one.
Really
Yeah, exactly. Council members, as you likely remember, the city's payroll system known as Pacer is over 20 years old, and it pays over 50,000 employees every 2 weeks, including yourself and myself. In 2016, at the request of the city controller, KPMG assessed the current Pacer system and described it as hard to maintain, prone to breaking, and in desperate need of replacement. Even worse, it provides very few HR capabilities for a city our size. So the system we use today has actually hamstrung us when it comes to the recruitment, the development, and the management of city employees, which I would argue is actually our most important asset, our most important resource here at the City of Los Angeles. In 2017, the City Council instructed ITA, Controller, and Personnel Department to begin the replacement process. Since that time, we've closely engaged city departments. We selected one of the world's best and most cost-effective HR payroll systems known as Workday, and we've begun the build of the new software. I'm very glad to report that we're less than 1 year away from the launch of the new system and the replacement of Pacer. I'd like to introduce Raylan Napper, who's ITA's project manager, just to provide that latest update on this critical project.
All right, good morning and welcome Councilmember Rahman. I'm Raylan Napper with ITA, and I'd like to start by highlighting a couple of things that are only alluded to in the report. So the first thing is on working remotely. The city executed the contract with Workday on April 9th, which means 100% of the work thus far has been performed remotely. And I have to commend both Workday and the city project team for just a great job adapting while maintaining the pace, which is quick, and the quality of work. Secondly, I'm really proud of the extent to which the project has already engaged departments, because of course we can't do this without them. Being remote hasn't hindered our interaction with staff in other departments, and in many respects, I think it's actually helped. So for example, when we meet virtually with departments, they tend to bring their entire team. Whereas if we were meeting in person, I think we'd see just a few higher level staff and maybe not get all the info that we do now. And then to date, every department has been interviewed twice by the organizational change management team. And in October, the HR and payroll staff of every department attended 2 to 2.5 day sessions to review design decisions with the team. And then prior to that, representatives from many departments were also involved in the 135 design workshops we held to assist with making those initial design decisions. And then, of course, we have held 2 town halls since launching the project, and those reached far more than if we had held them in person. So overall, the project is progressing well. We're on track with the timeline and maintaining the intended scope. The work streams have moved quickly to design the core elements in their individual areas. And now they are building upon that to add more complexity and interaction between the functional areas, like using the human capital or HR area to validate entries and time tracking. So this is just indicative of the iterative nature of this project. And it's also a factor that's enabled the team to accomplish so much in such a short period of time. For example, right now, the city has a Workday tenant with data for every employee, and that data is about 80% of where we need it to be. Now, that's data. It doesn't mean the project's 80% complete. Also, many business processes, because we have workflow with this new system, and all the accompanying rules have been not only designed, but actually configured in that tenant. And it contains logic for every MOU and ad code provision that relates to compensation. And then this month in January, we began unit testing. So we'll have more robust testing to follow. And it will be through that testing and refinement that we seek perfection and move towards that 100% accuracy and completeness. So this isn't to say we haven't been without our challenges. We've worked through several functional and technical issues, but the most severe risks to the project right now are, of course, external things that the project team has little control over, such as losing crucial subject matter experts to the separation incentive program, or having the remaining subject matter experts unavailable because now they have less staff and more work. Furloughs, one of the other more direct risks, has been alleviated for the current fiscal year, which is a great relief. But the hiring freeze still threatens team resources, as we could lose team members who promote elsewhere. So we're certainly doing all that we can to mitigate these risks, as outlined in the report. But these are the things that keep us awake at night and truly threaten the timeline. So Ted mentioned we're less than a year out, and I just wanted to remind everyone that the timeline is really imperative to this project, because going live later in the 2022 calendar year and not at the beginning means the city will have to maintain and close out 2 separate payroll systems. And that increases effort, of course, but it also increases the risk quite a bit. Finally, as a result of the current downsizing, we do plan to exercise our option in the amendment to reduce the worker count, and we'll realize a modest savings on subscriptions in the coming fiscal years. And with that, I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
That's great. Thank you. Councilmember Price, did you have any questions on this? Oh, I think he might not be listening to the meeting right now. I looked this over. I'm really happy to have the update. I'm very excited to have the payroll software updated. I think I don't have any further questions at this time. Thank you for your time in updating the committee, and we look forward to staying on top of this as we move ahead with it. I'm really, really excited about all of these new technologies that we're using. All of these new all these new software programs that we're using, updating 20-year-old, 25-year-old technologies. I mean, this is really, it's high time the city did this, and I'm very, very excited to see the benefits that these bring to the city going forward.
And council member, this is what software that you could actually have heard about outside of government. So actually real respectable software packages.
Yeah.
We're very proud of that.
Yeah, it's great. It's really good. So great. Thank you, Raylan, and thank you to both of you for talking about this and spending your time. I think we can. At this time, what do we need to do? I need to.
We will be concurring with the Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee's action and note and file this item if that's okay with you.
Yes, that is fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I think now at this time we have our last item, item number 5.
Yes, item number 5 is a report or reports from the Information Technology Agency relative to updates on raising awareness and the dissemination of information on the availability of low-income internet plans for disadvantaged and low-income communities.
Yeah, this is of particular interest to me. It's something that obviously has come up as a major issue during the pandemic, and I think something where we can't forget the lessons that we are learning right now for the future. I just feel like all the pandemic did was reveal what's important rather. So excited to hear from you.
Absolutely. Ted Ross, General Manager with the ITA again. I'm joined by Miriam Abbasi, also in my team. Certainly, as these council members know, we live in a digital age. According to Pew Research, about 81% of Americans own a smartphone, over 70% are active on social media, and about 3 out of 4 Americans own a computer. But these numbers really don't truly reflect the inequities in internet access. As described in the council motion in the state of California, about 35% of low-income households don't have internet access, 30% of Latino families, or 41% of people with disabilities. And that's according to Annenberg Research Network from USC. And this situation, as you mentioned, has only been exacerbated by COVID. Small businesses have needed to go digital. Students have had to move all of their learning online. And social distancing has really made things like social media one of the few ways that families could even stay in touch. And of course, all of this requires internet accessibility, which is relatively easy for someone like myself, a CIO who's probably got devices coming out of my ears, but not so much for a lot of communities in Los Angeles. This city council, I think, has showed a lot of leadership across several council actions. For this council motion specifically, ITA was asked to report back on the work that we were doing to increase awareness of how to get low-cost internet available for Angelenos. Last year, ITA launched the Get Connected Los Angeles website, in which we created an entirely new, easy-to-use, mobile responsive website with the focus of making no-cost or low-cost internet easily accessible to students, to residents, to local businesses. The updated site should provide easy access to not just low-cost internet, but computer availability as well as digital literacy training. In partnership with everyone on, a resident can simply enter an address or a zip code on the website and find all the no-cost and low-cost internet resources that are available to them. To make it available to the communities that really needed it, we also had to work very closely with a whole range of partners to publicize it. So first, we published this, of course, heavily on all the city's social media channels. Then we developed TV content and we televised it periodically through LA's Channel 35 and Channel 36 stations. We updated our 311 call center with this resource. They handle 1.5 million requests per year, a whole range of topics, and we want to make this available to anyone who called for simple city information. We publish this resource through all other city departments, including LA Library, EWDD, Parks, etc. Our council members and other elected leaders have published this resource through their own channels. And I think most importantly, we work very closely with LA Unified School District to publish this resource on their website through their social media channels and to do anything we could to raise awareness, especially of LA students and LA parents. I'm proud to say that since October 2020, our Get Connected Los Angeles website has been connected to by over 230 other websites. It ranges from the LA Times, CBS, KTLA, to Para Los Niños, LA community colleges, local churches, CSU University. So there's a whole range of other digital assets that have been pointing to this site to try to help drive traffic. Of course, this has been a group effort, and I wanted to thank our fellow departments, governments, news agencies, etc., for helping getting this important information out to LA communities. I'm sure there's questions. I'm sure there's interest. I know both these council members are passionate about this topic. for their constituencies and for LA. So I'm available for any questions, or if you even prefer, we could also provide a demonstration of the website. Your choice.
Sorry about that. I was looking at the website and lost the screen where I had the meeting set up. I did take a look at the website on my own. I don't know whether Councilmember Price, you wanted to take a look at it, but I think a demonstration. I'm pretty familiar with what it did. The thing I was most curious about today was really asking you about traffic numbers. Do you have whether you were able to monitor visits to the site and how those increased with the amount of publicity that you received over time? And I think, not just for this effort, but for one of the biggest issues that I've seen with the city overall is really trying to make sure that the resources that the city has are accessible to people outside. And this seems like an effort where you really put a lot of time and thought and manpower into building partnerships with a whole network of local organizations to make sure that this was went out into the world. And I'm really curious to know what were the results on traffic? What did you or were there other means that you were holding yourselves accountable to see how effective this was at getting the word out about these resources?
Certainly. So I'll ask Miriam Abbasi if she could provide the traffic numbers. One thing to keep in mind is we've been live since late October or so. So we really only have a couple of months of data. But if she could provide that, and I think one thing that's also worth saying in regards to this, we're open and available for any other ideas, any other concepts, any other outreach. We know this is an iterative process. Internet access doesn't get solved through simply a website. But Miriam, if you could speak to the traffic that was provided by staff.
Certainly. Good morning, Mariam Abbasi with Information Technology Agency. Welcome, Councilmember Rahman. Yes, the site was launched in October 20th, and since then we have 4.4 thousand users who have visited the site. And the site, as Ted Ross mentioned, has been advertised or linked from various non-City of Los Angeles sites outside of the city, such as various types of organizations. And one of the things that we can continue to do is amplify its availability through LA City Twitter, Facebook, and of course Channel 35. And we also often get a lot of questions through 311. I don't have the statistics or the numbers of how many questions we've received about the site, but the site is being referred by our 311 call center constantly to those who have questions about access computers and where they can find these resources.
Great. So just to clarify, it was 4,400 visitors. Is that right?
4.4 thousand, yes. 400, yes, 400,000.
400,000. Okay. 400,000.
Sorry, 4,400.
4,000. Sorry.
That's right. Jason, can you help me with this? I believe you said 4,400. I have Jason Joseph from ITA Web Services, who helped us run the traffic for this site as of, I believe, this week. Jason, are you on mute?
I don't know if he's here, unfortunately, or he's not. Jason Joseph, are you there?
Yes, he just said that his mic has been blocked.
Okay.
We got 1,000 hits a month.
1,000 hits a month.
So yes, 4.4 thousand hits since launch in October.
And was there any particular source that tended to get you the most links or anything like that? What was kind of the most fruitful way that you got traffic to the site?
I think unfortunately Jason's the one who's got it. So he's putting it into chat as we speak. So news sources like LA Times were some of the best. We have a fairly robust, we use Google Analytics, and it's very important to us to try to track that type of information. But it looks like LA Times, KTLA, et cetera, were some of the biggest ones.
Great, good to know.
And we also had a press release from the mayor's office on this program, Get Connected Los Angeles. When events like that happens, it promotes the resources been promoted in various events or by council members or through their events, and LAUSD has linked this information. So we can provide more information, of course, on the traffic. However, it's based on the very, very short time that it's been on, and it's been updated since. And since it was updated, it provides links to other providers. It provides links to resources, statewide resources such as CETF or Everyone On, that would allow for a search by zip code. So it's been very helpful to have this link referenced by other.
It's a good website that really summarizes, I think, all of the different sources for people to get through the library, through Everyone On, through the private providers that are giving those access. I think it's a really good tool, and I think what is just helpful to me is to understand what is most helpful in getting the word out about resources like these. And then the other question I had was just in terms of language issues, which is, you're talking about most of the people who don't have access to internet being primarily Spanish language speakers, but I noticed that the website is exclusively in English, I believe. Yeah. And just curious about whether you had specific plans to make it available in other languages. I don't think that's necessarily. I just wanted to ask, and then also to see whether you had partnerships with any of the ethnic newspapers or
important
news.
Question. Important question.
Yeah, this is Ted. One quick item to confirm: it's 4,400 unique visitors, which is certainly better than hits. So that's one item to state. The second item, in regards to kind of what are some of the best ways to make these resources available, let us do a little follow-up on it, because it'll allow us to check in on 311, check in on web, check in on social media, and kind of let you know what maybe got the most traffic and had the most gravitas with connecting with communities. In regards to multilingual, that's absolutely an important question. Jason, do we currently have, so we've done on things like lac.org, et cetera, we'll do automated language translation through Google Translate. Jason, do we currently have that on the Get Connected site?
Good morning, all. To answer your question, Ted, no, we don't have it now, but we can definitely look into implementing something like Google Translate on the site.
Yep. So we absolutely want to do that. In the past, we've run into issues with dedicated translation, where we would create a separate Spanish site, a separate Korean site, et cetera, because we often found that the translations will fall out of sync with time, and they've often been relatively expensive for us to do. But we have found that Google Translate has been very effective when it comes to multilingual translation. It's not always perfect, but it certainly makes it very capable. As somebody who happens to have some relatives who live in Germany, technically in Austria, I've been ordering my nephews and nieces their Christmas presents every year off of the Amazon.de website using Google Translate to do it. And so I could order My Little Ponies and all sorts of other things. And so we found Google Translate to actually be pretty effective. Right. Not a perfect translation, but able to certainly get the job done. So we'll certainly take the task of trying to make that happen for the site.
Councilmember Price, did you have additional questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I actually just want to underscore the fact that it's got to be at least bilingual, yep. in our town,
Yep.
And we got that same issue with 311. It's only in English. We expect people to use 311 and to call in, and so I just want to work with you, Madam Chair, on pushing this equity lens is a little further, and making sure that the services aren't just available, but they're available and they're accessible. Yeah. To folks that can use them. So
we happen to have.
I appreciate the collaboration. Ted's always been a friend and a partner. Appreciate the collaboration with ITA and the other departments. We just got to really bring this one home, I think, sooner than later.
Yep. something I wanted to mention. We happen to have a digital code of ethics that we've been working through with other city departments, and we have yet to publish through the mayor's office. And in our digital code of ethics, we actually have as a standard that all city public websites be made with, at the very least, machine translation. So at the very least, we have Google Translate, if not a native translation on it. So it's certainly something that as a city, we want to be able to deliver across all of our services and establish as a standard. It hasn't been formalized just yet, but this is something that over the last 4 or 5 months, we've been working with the mayor's office, and we're very nearly ready to publish.
Great. And then I just had one more question. I noticed in the report that you, actually, was it for this or for the previous thing? I can't remember, but for one of them, you had said that you want, oh, it is for this, because you had talked about using DWP bills as a way to publicize it, but DWP had a rule that you can't publicize something like this on their web. And I was just wondering whether you had a little bit more context on what that rule was, because that seems, honestly, like I said, I do think city should be a doorway for services. A really good way to get the word out is probably through a mailer that's already being paid for and being sent out to everybody, which is your bill from DWP. It feels like a really useful tool to get the word out, and I thought it was actually a really brilliant idea, but was wondering what the barrier was. I know they mentioned that they can't do paid services through that, but just if you could provide a little bit more context on that, because I think that's a powerful mechanism to get the word out.
Yeah, one of the strengths of the city of Los Angeles is, for lack of a better term, we're a multi-channel media empire, right? We have so many different interactions with people, whether it's a sign on a trash can or a trash truck or a DWP bill or a website. To my knowledge, Miriam, I don't know if you have the background on that. My understanding is that as a proprietary department, they were only advertising their own services, but maybe you have additional information.
That's correct. They said that the Department of Water and Power is barred from advertising or disseminating information on topics that are not related to the department's operation, and that included billing inserts and use of space or on their mailed customer bills and space on the department website. And so that would be something that they're no longer doing, just including information about DWP's operations.
And did you get a sense for why that they're barred from doing that? Is that a specific?
The sense that I got that it had to do with it would be more maybe viewed as the gift of public funds that needed to be part of their operations.
Okay.
So we may need to have more discussions on that.
Great. Yeah. Well, that's helpful. Okay. Great. Well, that was all my questions for this item. I commend you guys for putting this website together. I thought it was really well put together, and the information was all current. I checked out every link and looked at every follow-up, looked up what was available for my zip code, and it was really exciting. Yeah, I'm excited about it, and hopefully we can learn from this to make sure that going forward, when we provide resources like this, that we can get it utilized as much as possible. I think capturing some of these lessons that you learned, putting this together and getting the word out might be really useful for future efforts like that. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And so at this time, I guess I can say that we will note and file this report as well. Great. Mr. Espinoza, is there anything else that is pending before the committee today?
No, Madam Chair, the desk is clear.
Oh, fantastic. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for being here on my first day.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.